I hope you guys have all had a really good week and weekend. I hope that you also noticed that I extended the deadline for the structure and skin. We're going to be talking about that this week and then also next week. I am sorry for having to reschedule this for Tuesday night. I expect that nobody's going to be able to show up. The people that have been showing up, Wednesday works out really well for them. But unfortunately, I did some math. I'm a rescue vehicle for a group in the Grand Canyon tomorrow, and I thought I'd get back by about 6 or so, but it looks like I'm not going to get back for another couple hours tomorrow night. So um, it's either everybody watch a recording for today or miss out altogether in these lovely meetings. And I don't want to disappoint you. I know everybody looks forward to our get-togethers every week. The other thing I wanted to talk about was the annotated bibliography. And I wanted to go through them all. Again, we're just going through, we're not looking at anybody's names or anything. There are a couple issues that I would like people to look at, both for really good examples of how to write the two paragraphs and things to pay attention to with the annotated bibliography itself, or I'm sorry, the bibliography itself. The annotation is what you write, and then what a couple of the things you need to do along with that to get full points. So we're going to look through all those, and then I'll get them graded later on tonight. Let's see. Oh, and I wanted to mention something too that I'm rather excited about. Let's see if I can. I'm going to try to find the poster here so I can share it with everybody. But I mentioned to people that I am going to be speaking on Friday the 13th this week. So this Friday, I'll be talking. And what I'm looking for is an image. There you go. That I will share with you. What this talk is about is just Friday evening at 6 p.m. And we are going to be talking about folklore. This is stories that people share, on specifically Bigfoot in Utah. So I'm a folklorist. I've been doing that for quite a while. My friend Danny is with the humanities department at UVU, and he is going to be speaking on collecting stories and stories that people tell him. And then Dr. Bybee, who is with the biology department, is going to be talking about animals and physiology and science. So hopefully it'll be really interesting. But if anybody wants to come to that, that'd be awesome. And I will give you extra credit for coming to it and writing 4 paragraphs that apply the Felton method that we've been discussing about artistic critique. Describe, analyze, interpret, and evaluate. 1 paragraph of 3 to 5 sentences for each of those 4 things on the presentation itself, or the aspect about it, or anybody's specific talk that they give. And you will notice, and I'm going to do a screen share right now and show you. Let's see. And again, this is just extra credit. There's no reason for you to do it if you don't want to. But I want to share with you where that looks like. If you go to, this is our homepage for the class. If you go down here to attendance, click that open. And you get right here to extra credit. In this, talk about, oh, I'm sorry, there's 5 different things. So the 4 paragraphs: description, analysis, interpretation, and evaluation. And then you just, before you start it, you just write a sentence or 2 saying, this is it. This is what I'm doing. Now, this is for different things. And I tried to open it up to as many things as possible. Movie, scene from a movie, or other specific subject. This is a specific subject if you want to apply the extra credit for that. And then this just describes what you need to do the extra credit. And that's it. And next week we can talk about that more if you'd like. But definitely, if you feel like it, please do come. Hopefully it'll be a lot of fun. Oh, hi, Emily. I'm so glad you showed up, so I'm not talking to myself. Let's see. And I do want to share with you guys, and I'm going to do another screen share where I will show you what the information is, and I'll email that. I think I emailed that last week. Let's see if we can do this. Yes, here it is. So there's going to be a pop-up exhibit that the library is putting together about Bigfoot in Utah, and then the panel discussion. That's what we're doing, starting at 6 p.m. on Friday the 13th. And again, you can use that for the extra credit assignment if you'd like to. All righty. I'm sorry, I'm dealing with a little bit of allergies. So if I'm sniffling and sneezing a bit, I'm not trying to do that on purpose. But I do want to, the two main things I want to talk about today are the annotated bibliography. And we do have two people that are doing service learning, and they are running into a couple issues with coordinating with people. And so as soon as they're able to get their part done for this section, I will share that with people too. But until then, I wanted to go through the annotated bibliography, what people have done, and point out what the really good bits are and some of the things that need to be changed. And I'm not going to grade that again until this coming weekend, like I did with the wire. So please feel free, if you need to change anything, go through and do that. Or if you'd like me to, I can go ahead and grade it, and then you could just look at remember the things that we talked about tonight, and resubmit after you make the changes so I can regrade it. Emily, do you have a preference as to which I should do? Or are you able to get it?
I'm doing the service learning. Is that what we're talking
Oh,
about?
you're doing the service learning. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, excellent. Now, you had mentioned a couple of the issues that you were having. Did my response, did that help at
Yeah,
all?
that was great.
Okay. Service learning, I have to be more flexible with that because you are dealing with groups of people that absolutely do not care what your deadlines are. So just do the best you can. All right. And then when you're able to get that the next step done, let me know, and we'll share it next time when we get together. Is that all right? All right, excellent. Okay, I'm going to do a screen share here. Now, Emily and I have already talked about the service learning thing, so I'll go over that briefly after we're done here. Or Emily, do you think we need to at all? Because everybody's doing it. I've talked to them directly.
I'm okay either way. I've made a little bit more progress in that. The the people I'm doing it for, I've got that confirmed now. I just need to
Okay.
kind of figure out some further details, but we
Okay.
don't need to go over it in detail right
Okay.
now.
Well, we've been talking about it, just you and I. So I think that'll be good until you get to a point where you want to share what you've done.
Okay.
If that's okay.
Yeah,
And then
totally.
and then the other people that are doing service learning, it's so much more effective if we just talk one-on-one. So if you're doing that, just let me know, and we'll continue our one-on-one. All right, with the annotated bibliography, this you have 5 sources that you need to do, and each of those sources you need to look at them. I don't want them all to be the same, but I want to mention a couple of things to look out for, which you guys all have done that pretty much. There's three kind of biases that you need to be really aware of as you do research for things. One is the source bias, one is confirmation bias, and one is kind of information or online information bias. And what those three is first the source bias. Just be aware of where the material is coming from. And for example, if you are doing a report on oil spills from oil rigs, you are going to get a very different article looking at something like the Sierra Club, which is founded in California, and they are all about the environment, than you are an article that was written by a company like BP Oil, who sponsors the oil rigs. And hopefully that makes a pretty easy sense. You just need to be mindful of what the sources, where the sources come from. When you are doing research on an artist, are you doing a research on somebody who is trying to sell you the art, or are you doing referring to articles about people that are trying to share with you the art? And the difference is, one person is going to be all about, you need this, you got to have it, this is all it costs, and the other person is, this is what I feel about the artwork. And so be mindful of that. Second, confirmation bias is most of the social media engines that we use. And if you are logged in, most of the other search engines like YouTube, Google, Bing, if you're logged in, they are programmed to give you what they think you're looking for, things that support your own ideas, your own opinions already. And so what I would recommend, if you're going to use a search engine like that, who wouldn't? Really easy to use. Log out. Make sure that you go in without being logged in, and that's going to give you a lot more fair assessment of the information. And then the third one, the internet source bias, you have to be mindful of this. Several years ago, I did an interview for a magazine, radio kind of thing in Turkey for some artwork that I was doing. And then within about 4 months, I saw all these articles coming out. They were published in magazines in Yemen, Syria, Egypt, Morocco, different places like that. And I started getting really excited. So I started listing all those articles in my CV. And then it dawned on me that all those articles were essentially just giving a new title to the one article, one interview that I had done. And they were all the same thing. And this is important. If you're doing research and you're asked to give 5 sources, make sure that the 5 sources are distinct. None of you have had a problem with that, but just that's something to be mindful of. And on this page, I'm showing that because here is a tutorial that talks a little bit about MLA format. And then here are a couple different, these should all be free. If they're not, tell me, and I will put up free ones. I actually have a list of about a dozen of these. And these seem to be pretty much the most dependable. There's a couple of other different ones that I use, but these are all good links. You put in the source page of what you're doing, the HTML address, and then we'll give you the bibliography. Most of those, that's how they work. But since it is AI engine driven, be mindful of that and just make sure that it fits with the actual MLA citation guide, because it is 99.5% accurate, but sometimes it's a little bit off, and you just need to be mindful of that. Now, Emily, I'm going to ask you a question. Why is it a bad idea to ask AI to put together any of this for you?
AI is not always going to give you truthful responses. It just is filling a response. It's filling it gives you an answer, but it doesn't mean it's giving you a true answer.
Yes, you're exactly right. The AIs that we use are built on something called large language models or language learning models. And these large language models, they look for the statistical use of words, the statistical appearance of words. And so what the AI model is just looking at is which things fit together. So if you ask it for an article for something, it'll give you an article because it's read stuff like that. Again, you have to be careful because it might be copying the article verbatim, and that's always a bad idea. But then the source it gives you, most of the time, unless you're very careful about how you do your task parameters, most of the time it's going to be bogus because, like Emily says, it just fills in the words. It puts the author's name in there, but it's a random grouping of words that seem to fit with where authors' names go. So it's always a good idea to find even if you use AI to help you, find the article itself online or the video itself online or the interview online, find it yourself, and then use that to generate the MLA citation. And I hope that makes sense for everybody. AI, I'd be really stupid to tell you not to use AI. You've got to use it. It's a tool. Don't be afraid of it. But you have to use it. I mean, like any other tool, you have to use your brain when you use it. Are you going to close your eyes when you use a saw or a hammer? Definitely not. You're going to pay attention. And it's the same thing with AI or anything else. So thank you, Emily, for letting me put you on the spot there. And when you do an annotated bibliography, what you do is your citation first, and then you do one paragraph that talks about what the citation is, the article or the video, what is going on. And then the second one, you're going to talk about is more of a reflection. Essentially, that's what these two paragraphs are. And you'll notice that this first one has all the authors' names, and this is correct MLA citation format. It has the name of the specific article that was referenced. It was a review of an art exhibit, and then it gives essentially the publisher, where who produced the article, and then the date that it was released. And then notice right here that I have highlighted in blue. Emily, do you mind if I put you on the spot again and just ask you what that is?
Yes. Do you want me to just read it?
Yeah.
Accessed on 23rd June 2021.
Excellent. Very well done.
Anytime.
Yeah, you have a future in voiceover.
Yes.
Now, this, oddly enough, is called an accessed on phrase. Isn't that eerie? But whenever you get something off the internet, anytime you reference anything from the internet, you have to put this in at the end. Notice there's a period at the end of the citation. There's the period right there. And then this accessed on phrase is after the period with another period after it. Why do you think we need to have the accessed on phrase at the end?
Probably helps to know that source is still available to be accessed.
Yeah. And if it's not, you can still, have you heard of the archive.net or the Wayback Machine websites?
Yeah, I love the Wayback Machine.
Yeah, and you can just put in that website or put in that information with that date, and it will find you what that website looked at on that date, whether or not it's still active. And have you ever heard of a guy named Richard Hoagland?
I have not.
As far as conspiracy theories go, he's like Captain America of conspiracy theorists. But one of the things that he was really good at is referencing NASA films and photos that NASA, because they're supposedly publicly run, excuse me, the hanky right there, supposedly because they're publicly run, they're required to post all the images that they get from all the deep space probes and satellites and everything like that. But what's fascinating to me is that you will come across these images that are airbrushed or altered somehow. Famously, Cydonia on Mars, and then lots of different areas on the moon. And Richard Hoagland was able to prove that by using websites like the Wayback Machine, where he would have an image of what it looked like when NASA first published the image, and then what it looked like 3 days later when NASA airbrushed it. And what's fascinating is you see the same kind of thing in Antarctica too, and in other places. But the reason why that's important is he was able to demonstrate that NASA did need to have public oversight to make sure that they kept that information, which is our information, available to us. Anyway, but you can see if you're doing the research annotated bibliography, in addition to this, you also need to have these 2 paragraphs. Now, I should say that what we've got to do as well, whenever you put a bibliography together, because we're artists and we like to communicate, what we want to do is show it in the order that we came across them, or show it in the order that makes sense. But that is not how you do an annotated bibliography. When you put it together, the order you have to have is alphabetical from that first letter, or if it's a number, the first number. And the reason you do that, that is standard annotated bibliography outline, but also you do that so people can access the information when and where they want to. So be mindful of that. And if I do see that people have messed that up unintentionally, I'll have to write it down here. And I thought I did write it up here, and it is described in this 11-minute tutorial video. But it looks like I'm going to have to put that in and clarify it a little bit. Anyway, so that's the annotated bibliography. That's what the assignment looks like. And I wanted to just share with you some of the ones that have been turned in. And I'm going to share this tab. I think this is a really good example of somebody who hit pretty much all the marks. What I like is right here, we have a really well done citation. And you don't have to include the website that you got it from when you have all this other information, but this person did, and they did it a really good job of laying it out. So this is really nicely done. And notice right here what they did. They got the access to on phrase right there. That's excellent. And we have one paragraph here that talks about it, and then another paragraph here says what resonates most with me. This is the reflection paragraph. So these are beautifully done. Excellent. And one thing that I would recommend this person go back and do is they aren't alphabetically organized. And that's the only thing. And this is something else that I think kind of shows where the AI processing engines kind of screw up a little bit. Well, one, we need to have a period right here after the 5, at the end of the access on phrase. But right here, if you go online, 9 times out of 10, your bibliography machines online that I'm asking you to use will do this, where it says museum, comma, Guggenheim. Emily, can you guess why that would be incorrect?
I'm already unmuted. Like that's the place they visited?
Well, yeah, and I'll explain
Unaided.
why this is wrong. But right here, this is exactly right.
It's not the
It's
author.
an author? Right, yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So this is just called Guggenheim Museum. And if the Guggenheim Museum is the author, then you just write Guggenheim Museum. You don't put museum, comma, Guggenheim. And that, again, that's not the fault of the person who did this. That is why you need to just double check these. Thank you, Emily. That's why you need to double check the websites that will formulate the MLA for you. And just be mindful of those things. So yeah, if it's a museum that is being credited as being the author, you just put in the name of the full museum. You don't put the at the end. You put, if the name of the museum is the Guggenheim Museum, then you put the Guggenheim Museum. It's not just Guggenheim Museum. So on this case, that would be museum after Guggenheim, and then everything else is really good with a period after the 5. And notice they did 2 really excellent paragraphs again. So this is really nice. And then same kind of thing here. We have really nice citation of the author. Everything's great right up there. We have this whole thing. At the end of the citation, it needs to have a period. So after the HTML, it needs to have a period right there, and then a period after the 5. So this person, their annotations are absolutely beautiful. They just need to put a little bit of punctuation in on here and then alphabetize them. If you guys hear any grunts and stuff like that in the background, my 2 dogs are wandering around. One of them, we have hardwood floors, and she loves tap dancing on the hardwood floors. I don't know if you can hear that. And the other one, she's an Airedale Terrier, and if she gets bored, she vocalizes very loudly to let everybody in the whole world know how bored she is. So if you're whining, it's not because I'm a jerk to my kids. It's because of that. All right, now these, on this, I can see some really good things here going on. I think that these citations are pretty good. It does not need this. This is unnecessary because it's right here. What it does need after each one is the accessed on phrase right here. And again, these need to be alphabetically organized. The other thing that also needs to happen is every annotation needs 2 paragraphs, and there's only 1 here. So this needs to have a second paragraph for each of those annotations. So again, this is unnecessary and needs to be removed, as needs the annotated, or I'm sorry, the accessed on phrase right after this. These are really good, the citations, and it needs 2 paragraphs. Then in addition to that, let's see. Yep, it needs to be alphabetized. So this goes after Ives, and it goes after Mothis. So the right order should be this one, Lucy Ives, then Kate Mothis, then Nana, then Francis Richard, right here, and then Emily Steer, or Steer Emily. So that should be the right order that it's in. So, and I think most of the time when I grade these and point these things out, the record has been about 3 minutes turnaround, but it usually takes somebody maybe half an hour at the very most to get this redone and turned in. All right, so this is a really good example of something that has to happen alphabetized wise. Notice that Jaime Plensa official website is right here. And then right here, this right here is the same. This Jaime Plensa is the same as the beginning of both of those because it doesn't have an author, and that's fine. But in that case, then you alphabetize this part that's next. And so this Gallery Lalong would go before Jaime Plensa right up here. And then since we have Jaime Plensa here, and this is longer, this does go after those 2. So, and this, can you hear me, has to go before this one. And then this is at the right point, it's at the end. So, double check. And then this one is missing the accessed on date. This is missing accessed on. This has it. This has it. And this has it. So they just need those. They all have 2 paragraphs. So I think, yeah, these are just little things that shouldn't take too long to fix. And this person included the HTML, the website address. It looks like they also need to be alphabetized. What I would do in this case is period at the end of this, then accessed on date right after here. It looks like there's this first paragraph is really solid, but this one is a paragraph is 3 to 5 sentences, and so this needs to be a little bit longer. Now, if you are using 3 to 5 sentences, if you are using, so on this one, what I need to see is the period and the access on date afterwards. The period needs to happen at the end of this address, web address, and then the access on date goes after that with a period at the end of it. And you notice that these two include the website address as part of the bibliography. And it looks, or as part of the citation, it looks to me that they're using a little bit different format. And you notice that some of the formats will have a comma after each one, or and this they've chosen to do period. In that case, after luring Augustine Gallery, this needs to have a period. Then you'd have a space, you'd have this HTML, then you'd have a space period, then you'd have a space, and then you'd have the accessed on date. Same thing with this. It needs to have a period right here, period right there, accessed on date. Period right here, accessed on date. And can you see with the consistency that I'm talking about? The art story period, Rachel Wright-Weed period, Modern Art Movements and Artists 2018 period. This needs to have a period too, because it's same kind of information. So and it looks like to me that I would just say this needs to be condensed down to 2 paragraphs, these 3 right here. So I'm hoping that everybody that has to write this is listening to what I'm talking about regarding this, so that they have a better understanding of what needs to be done to fix these. So this is really good right here. The citation is just fine, except this needs to be capitalized right there, capital J. This needs to have 2 paragraphs in the annotation. And then we also are looking at issues of alphabetizing, sorry, alphabetizing. These all need to be alphabetized. This right here has the accessed on date. This needs to have the accessed on date after it. This needs to have the accessed on date after it. Now sometimes, and we need a period after this date right here as well in order to match the formats. Unless all of them are like that, yeah. It needs to, after each selection bit of information, it needs to have a period. So Jeff Koons period, website period, just like this, accessed on date period. Now notice that this says accessed 8 June, doesn't have accessed on. That's fine. That doesn't make any difference at all. As long as it has that word access there, and it's the same on all of them. Again, 2 paragraphs, and all the citations must be in alphabetical order. So that's looking pretty good. Okay, this needs period and then the accessed on date. The biography, this really doesn't need to have a biography, these labels. All we are doing as an annotated bibliography is we don't need any of these Like it doesn't need to have one dot biography, doesn't need to have that, because you're going to talk about it in your 2 paragraphs of writing. What it does need is, and it doesn't need any photos, you don't need to include any photos. What it does need is the citation. At the end of the citation, the last period, and then the access on date, and all the citations must be in alphabetical order. So yeah, this really does not need screen grabs or anything like that. And it only needs 2 paragraphs. It looks like this one has 3 paragraphs. And I would recommend going in and, if possible, condense it. If you can't, that's fine too. That's totally fine. And again, doesn't need these phrases, single word things, just the citations. When you do the citations, let's see, I don't know if it was, yeah, this one. Okay. When you do them, I would recommend, if you're going to do this type of thing, where the citation begins all the way on the left margin, and then you're going to have a paragraph that comes in with an inset like that, that's fine. Do the same thing with the next one. Notice that this one, the citation is inset just like the paragraph. And if you're going to do that, that's fine too. But they do need to be consistent. And I would recommend doing an extra carriage return or an extra return between the end of the previous citation and the beginning of the next one. So the end of the annotation, I would do an extra space, extra return right here, so that we have a little bit more blank space between artworks and Lima Green. Now, Emily, I know that you're not working on the annotated bibliography, but is this what I'm going over? Is it making sense?
Yeah, I think you're being very thorough.
Okay. And I want people to remember too that, you're not professional writers, you're professional artists. So this is not something that, I'm putting your nose to the grindstone and hating on you about. This is just part of the process of writing. That's all it is. And so that's another reason why you make the changes, you resubmit it, I regrade it, you get more points. And, let's see. This is looking pretty good. We have the 2 paragraphs. There is something that I'm seeing is missing. And a couple of the things. One, they aren't in alphabetical order, but the other is it needs to have a period at the end of this and the accessed on date phrase on each of the citations. But I'm thinking that the paragraphs are looking really good. That's looking great. It just, they need to be ordered alphabetically. All right. I think that's all of them that have been turned in. And I'm really pleased that people did as well as they did. That is really good to see. Because this, if you haven't done an annotated bibliography, most of you haven't done it for a long time. You probably the last time you did it was 5 years ago or more. And so, it's going to be a while. It just takes a little bit of remembering is all. So I'm going to go, I think I will go through tonight and write what changes need to be done. And if anybody has any questions or like, they can talk to me. But and I will go in right now and make that change to this is something that we've talked about. It is in the assignment, but I want to be clear. I'm typing because I'm making the changes that I just told you I would. What I'm typing is those two things that I thought I needed to mention specifically because everybody's sidestepping it. Even though it is in the explanation of how to do it, I do not have it explicitly stated here, so that's what I'm doing right now. So I'm quiet for just a second as I'm doing that. Okay, I just made that change and I'm going to save that. Okay, let's see. Okay, I'm going to do a screen share so you guys can see what I just made, how I made the change. And then we'll go on to the next part. Okay, so at the end, I write that, make sure each citation has the access to on date, and all citations are arranged alphabetically. Okay, so if anybody has any questions about that, let me know. But as soon as you re-edit, make the change, resubmit, I should be fixing the grade like within a day. If not, email me so you can get all the points. All right. So the next thing I want to talk about is the next assignment. And I hope people noticed um, I corrected the date, the due date, so it shows that it's next weekend because I want people to. And if you guys think that this is getting a little bit too tight, let me know, and I will make the change regarding due dates and everything. But the next thing is kind of builds on the wire work that you were doing a little bit, but it asks you to think about how skin impacts the sculpture and how the structure impacts the sculpture. Most everybody did a pretty good job on the quiz. There were a couple things where it looked like people weren't looking at the textbook for some specific questions, and like the delineated spaces, you need to tell me exactly where they are on the sculpture. And a couple people just wrote what delineated spaces are, and the question is in reference to the sculpture that was shown on the quiz. So if there's anything, if you notice that you're missing any points on the quiz, go back, retake it, and fix what was incorrect. And then if I don't grade it within a day or two, email me and let me know. So I really like these three photos. Emily, can you see this? These three photos, these three images? Okay. I really like these three because Gustav Eiffel was the guy that inspired what Bartholdi was doing with the Statue of Liberty. And I don't know, have you seen Ghostbusters 2, Emily?
I haven't. No,
Okay.
I haven't.
That should be standard watching material for everybody in
That's
this
the
class.
next homework assignment.
Yeah, that's right. But they find out that they invent the Ghostbusters invent a goo that amplifies ambient emotional environment. So if people are happy, it makes everybody happier. If they're not, it makes everybody worse. And New York starts going to heck in a handcart because everybody gets more and more upset. And so the way that they figure out how to fix it is by filling the Statue of Liberty with this magic goo that amplifies happy emotions, and it's animates the Statue of Liberty. So she starts walking around town, and she makes the negative hotspots happy again. So basically, but it's kind of a fun, it's a really ridiculous movie. But if you watch that, they show the inside of the Statue of Liberty, and you can see what Bartholdi did with the girding inside. And the statue of the Eiffel Tower is a really good example of an object that exists entirely with the scaffolding, with the structure. And we can see all the girding and everything like that, and that's pretty much all we see. And the overall shape of it is because our brain fills in the spaces in between the girdings, the girding, and we see the overall silhouette. And then the Statue of Liberty, all we see is the skin. And it's amazing. It still is amazing to me that this is what is actually underneath it. But none of us see that. All we see is the copper sheeting over the whole statue. And what we're asking you to do in this particular module is to develop something where you create a structure that is out of the sticks and stuff that you have, and then apply skin to it, not liberally, but just enough so that it feels like both the girding underneath and the skin on top are equally as important to the viewer. And there are a couple restrictions to this, but I want to go over this really carefully with people so you understand it. And what's interesting to me is I do have complete all items on each of the modules, so you have to go through each one sequentially, because what I was getting is people were saying they were doing that, but they were going and doing the project first before looking at any of the other stuff, and that's a bad idea. Stuff like this, it's so much, you get so much more out of it if you go through it the way that we have it listed, because then it makes a lot more sense when you get to the time when you do the actual project. So the artist review, I'm sorry, I wanted to look at the artists themselves. Let's see if we can do that. Oh, there's the quiz. Okay, so here's the different artists that we talk about. And all of these artists play with those ideas of structure and skin being different levels of importance, and some of them you can see that the structure itself is really important. Like Richard Deacon, this is the structure itself, the wood girding that is made just feels incredibly important. And it shows also him applying some of the skin to it. And I don't know if you guys know too much about Frank Gehry, or Frank Gehry, but he is one of my favorite architects. And if it's okay, I want to watch this, but it may not be, it may not allow us to show it in the YouTube recording. And if that's the case, then I will include that recording separately so that you can watch it. But we can either watch this or we can watch the Buckminster Fuller one. this is, well, you guys have been watching all the videos, but this guy is pretty amazing too. And I love the Fuller Institute website. But let's go ahead and watch the Frank Gehry. And if this is not working in the YouTube video recording for the class, I will include it. So,
how do you create feeling with inert materials? Now, the Greeks knew how to do it. I've got a picture of the charioteer, 500 BC. When I saw it when I was 40 years old, I started crying, and I thought, that's what I want to do. I want to be able to build a building that makes.
Emily, right away, as we look at some of his buildings, what are you noticing that makes him very different from most architects?
His walls are really curvy. That's
Yeah.
what I thought.
Yeah, it's amazing to me. He uses the materials in a way that makes it feel a lot more organic than what we expect in a building.
Mm-hmm.
People moves them 500 years from now. What is it that made me want to come into this profession? In high school, I took shop and built things, and I did well in that and loved it, making things with your hands. I looked at the professions one could go into, and I remember looking at architecture at that time, and architecture curriculum was to build a Cape Cod house or something, it was not very interesting. So I closed the book on that and didn't even pay attention. But I did go to the lecture series on Friday nights at the University of Toronto. And there was a guy from Finland showing his buildings and furniture. And that guy turned out to be Alvar Aalto. So I was kind of peripherally interested. I didn't know I was interested. I was intrigued by the way things were built. When I got to LA, I went to night school at LA City College. I took a ceramics class with Glenn Lukens, who was a well-known ceramist. And he's the one that, after a year, told me not to stay in ceramic. He said, you're not going to like this. I think you should look at architecture. He was building a house by Rafael Soriano. I visited the site. Rafael Soriano was telling people to move beams around, and it was kind of exciting. I guess my eyes lit up. The first buildings I designed looked like Rafael Soriano. He got to me. My mother took me to concerts when I was a kid in Toronto. And I'm still to this day very interested in the topic, buildings for music, because you get a relationship between the orchestra members so they hear each other. And it's comfortable. They hear each other in a way that is substantial and uplifting. You create a relationship between the orchestra and the audience that's palpable, that they both feel. If you do it right, they both feel it. So music stuff is really exciting, and my belief that people talk to each other through the arts led me to the Divan Orchestra with Daniel Barenboim. He and Edward Said created an orchestra where Palestinians, Syrians, Lebanese, Egyptians play in an orchestra with Israelis. And so I designed their 700-seat concert hall in Berlin as a gift to the orchestra. And it really works. So that's the music stuff. The art stuff is also there. Bilbao was a working relationship with a genius museum director, Tom Krenz. And it's that collaboration that led to the project that we built, which was a very inexpensive building compared to museum buildings. Bilbao was built for $300 a square foot. So and it came in slightly under budget. And its return on investment has been beyond everybody's wildest dreams. I mean, if you start to use curves, you think it's more expensive than a box, right? But we've developed with our French friends who build airplanes, with their software, we were able to demystify shapes so you could build them cheaply. And we built it like a warehouse, a big warehouse. Every contract has a 15% layaway for change orders. If you show people exactly what to do, demystify the way you build something, they don't get the 15%. So we did a 76-story tower in Manhattan. The exterior skin is all wiggly wobbly. Everybody would say that's too expensive. We built it with 0 change orders. So the amount of money that you saved actually went into the building instead of waste. So we experiment with the feelings generated by materials. In Bilbao, since it was a museum and not a lot of windows, the exterior skin became the building. It's a rainy climate. And so stainless steel went dead. Stainless steel is exciting in California because you got a lot of sunlight. By accident, I had a piece of titanium and I looked at it and I put it out on a post and it rained and it turned golden and it felt right. And so I said, that's what we got to use. When you go to Bilbao and it's cloudy skies, the thing turns golden and it's really beautiful. In Arles, France, we're just completing a building for a special lady, Maya Hoffman. And it's where Van Gogh did Starry Night. And I've always wanted to paint on a facade with natural light. And we built blocks that are covered with stainless steel. And they're set at slightly different angles. And when you go there with the sun, it changes all day long. So it's like a watercolor. It was beautiful.
I love that. I hope everybody gets to see that. Again, if not, then I will put it into the, can you hear the dog? I'll put it into the attendance thing. But I wanted you guys to see that just because artists like Frank Gehry will take the things that we expect to have happen and completely transform them. His buildings are made with metal and steel and concrete, things that are very apparently lifeless. And what he does with that skin and paying attention to the structure under the skin transform lifeless materials into things that feel like they're breathing. And I think that is just astounding. Can you hear the dog whining?
I can't, but I've heard him moving around a few times.
Okay. Yeah, she's not happy that I'm so boring today. Oh well, life's miserable. She'll get used to it. Okay. All right. So this is what the assignment is. And I know that people are probably already starting on it, but there's a couple things I wanted to stress. We really wanted to point out so that people can be mindful of going forward. When we look at each of these structures, what we need to do is build something with modules that are fist size or smaller. And you need to have like 5 or 6 of them. And then you're going to figure out a way to put them together and put skin on the modules so that the skin doesn't cover everything, but so you can see the sticks and the girding that goes within each of the modules. And I wanted to look at each of these 3 student examples, tell you where the modules are, and talk to a little bit about where the skin is applied. Now, the modules do need to be references to each other. They need to be either riffs on the same idea or the exact same thing. That is really important. I've had people turn in sculptures that look beautiful, but they get a bad grade because it doesn't fit the parameters of the assignment. One of the parameters of the assignment for this is that the modules need to be repeated. When we look at here on the left-hand side, the module is essentially this orange crate hollow box kind of shape, this rectangle box. But you notice that not all of them are identical to that. Some of them also have this notch cut out, and that's fine. They are still referencing the same module. Now, what would make this so that it doesn't work would be if they do 3 boxes and then another one is a triangle, then they make a circle and they go back and forth, maybe a pyramid. No, it needs to, you can see that these are all related to each other in various forms of the box. And again, we have three or four of them with notches out. But other than that, they're all the same, pretty much the same shape. Now we look at this middle one, and the difference here is that all of these are the exact same shape. Notice that they all look almost like somebody who's folding a tetrahedron kind of form. We have what looks like 2 long lines right here. This, we have a big long triangle shape, and then we have 2 smaller triangles attached at an angle to one side. And then on the other side, we have, looks like this is, they're adding a couple more triangles onto it. But you can see that they're all the exact same shape. And right here, this one is a little bit more problematic because it's hard to see where what the actual module is. But what this person did is they made a trapezoid shape, made several trapezoid shapes, and then they just kind of tweaked the trapezoids a little bit so that they weren't all flat, and combined them by sharing one after another. That they would share the short end, then the long end, then the short end, then the long end, then the short end, then the long end. And so the module becomes like essentially 2 of these stuck together. And then they just went and formed them all together like that for the most part. This one, I think, is a little bit problematic because it's not really easy to see where the modules are. But this is perfect as the exact same module. And then this is an excellent example of the module being repeated with a little bit of variation. Now, when we talk about, Emily, does that make sense to you when we talk about the modules?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Like the building block, kind of.
Yeah, essentially, you're making, just like what you said, you're making a building block to repeat. And if these are about fist size, you'll want like 5 or 6 of them. If they're smaller than that, you probably want more. And now let's talk a little bit about the skin. So we've got this building block that we've made out of sticks, whatever sticks you want to use. And we'll talk about a different things that people have used and what are good examples, or what are good ideas and what are bad ideas. But now let's talk a little bit about the skin that goes on top of the sticks. On here, this person is doing 2 things that are really interesting. One is they have flat pieces of cardboard, the same shape as that face of the box, that they cut out and attached right to the sticks. And you can see that right here. 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 And right here too. So the cardboard is stuck right onto the box. But what do you see right here? It looks to me like they've taken little pins, stuck the pins through the cardboard, and then glued the ends of the pins to the box itself. So you have the skin about, it looks like maybe about a ½ inch, quarter inch to ½ inch off away from the flat side of the module. So that's really interesting. And so that's 2 different ways that you could attach the skin, directly to it or a little bit offset. Now, something else that you'll notice is that each of the modules have 2 pieces of cardboard on them. And this person is putting them together. They haven't stacked them like you would expect at all. They haven't stacked them like blocks. They have stacked them and put them together at angles from each other. And why is that important? Because this sculpture, we need to, in all the work that we do, we need to activate the volume of space around it. Now, if we just stack these one on top of each other or side by side, you'd only be activating, if it's one on top of each other, you'd only be activating height. If it's side by side, you'd be making a line and it would only be width. And that's why we need to pay attention to stacking the modules together, attaching them at corners and angles. And you can see how this is the closest object to us. Then on this side, it kind of curves away. On this side, it kind of curves up and away a bit. And then this one leans back forward towards us. So you can see this is almost like a corkscrew, and it's activating the volume around it. Now on this one, we look at the skin. This one, the person, each of the modules has the skin in the exact same two spaces, the short triangles at the end of this long triangle. Now, one of the things we want to do is make sure that the skin is in between us and the girding in some areas, and the girding is between us and the skin in other areas. This one, you can kind of see the girding right here, but you have to walk around it to see that because most of the skin is on one side. This one, I think, does a really good job of fulfilling that part of the assignment because they use 4 modules going this way and then 4 modules going the other way. So we have several of these. The skin is between us and the structure, and in other places, the structure is between us and the skin. Another thing that they've done is they put this very specifically in a spiral. So these 4 go in a spiral this way, these 4 go in a spiral that way, and then they attach the 2. So it feels like here the skin is moving away from us, and here the skin is in front of us moving away. But by making a spiral like that, it very much activates the volume of space around it. It's not a stack, it's not a line, it's a spiral. And you'll notice too that this feels a little bit off balance, and that's one of the 7 ways that the textbook talks about involving the viewer. You know, making things that are just a little bit off balance. And then on here, this person did a really good job activating space because, again, the modules aren't in a line horizontally and they aren't in a stack vertically. They kind of snake around. Like last week, we saw that one really beautiful wire sculpture of a snake, and they did something similar to this with the snake itself, which I think is pretty cool. Now, does that kind of make sense, Emily, what I've been talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I had to have a question. We have the sticks and the cards and glue and tape and string in our kits already.
Yes, you should have skewers and popsicle sticks and stuff like that in cards. And I really appreciate you saying that because I wanted to talk about some of the other materials that you can use. Not everybody elected to use the stuff in the kit to make these. And that's totally fine too. I would kind of brainstorm a little bit what you can do about skin, what you can do about sticks. And I'll tell you some of the things that people have done in the past as well. In the past, people have, of course, used skewers and popsicle sticks. People sometimes use toothpicks as well. You know, those big, long sandwich toothpicks. I've also had people, this I thought was really creative. They took origami paper, folded it along the diagonal, and then rolled it up really super tight along that diagonal line. So they had a bunch of sticks that were about that long that looked like rounded toothpicks out of origami paper. And that just seems really arduous. But, and then other people have done things. I don't think pipe cleaners works really well. People have actually tried to use that though, but they're just not strong enough. And some of the things that I think are really good to avoid is noodles. Noodles do not work well at all. So that's something to avoid. But yeah, most of that stuff should be in your kit. And to glue it together, uh, you can use Gorilla Glue. You can use a little bit of glue and then tie it with some thread or string. That can be an interesting effect. If sometimes people use hot glue to glue them together, and that kind of works. There's not a lot of tensile strength in the hot glue, but that can work. And if it's a little bit of a struggle, again, you can use string to tie that together. I have seen a couple of these where people used bubble gum and thread, and that's kind of gross, but it does work. Now for paper, I'd like you to be creative. You can do a couple different things with paper. There are the folders that are in the kit. You can use regular paper, but some of the other things that you can do is you can paint paper or dye it. Put a little bit of, make some tea or coffee and paint the paper with that, and that gives a really interesting texture and color. People have also used transparencies, just clear plastic transparencies. People have used wrapping paper or cellophane. Other people have actually made most of their object, and then a couple of for some of the skin areas, they actually wove strips of paper together to make a pattern, or crocheted something. Not necessarily for all of the skin areas, but for some of them, and that looks really interesting. I'm going to share this really quick again. If you can imagine, like on something like this, maybe this piece of cardboard or this piece of cardboard being replaced with something like colored tissue paper might be interesting. Or something like this, where maybe right here is woven paper, and maybe this one is woven paper, maybe this one is woven paper. So I want to do it on all of them, but for what makes sense might be interesting. Some people also ransacked the junk drawer in the kitchen and got, I don't know if you remember those colored 3x5 cards, but they used some of those for skin. And what was kind of fun is that each of them were a different color. Each of the skin pieces were a different color, and they just went through all 5 colors that they had. And that could be fun as well. And somebody else had index cards like that with the lines on it, and with the lines, they put the skin on, so the lines sometimes went with were parallel to one of the sides. Sometimes it went straight through. Sometimes it was parallel to another side, but they used that as a design element. And I've also had somebody who just got some old books that were being thrown away because they were missing half their pages, and they cut up the book pages and used the text and the pictures from the book for to kind of emphasize some of the skin areas. So there can be some fun things to do with that. So just be thinking about that. But remember, we need to have modules that relate to each other, that are obviously modules. They're either riffs on the same shape or they are the exact same shape. Skin needs to be applied so that you can see that you can visually see both the structure and the skin at the same time. So sometimes the skin will hide the structure, sometimes the structure will be between the viewer and the skin. So there needs to be a balance there, and just look at those 3 examples for ideas. And then you also need to make sure that you activate the volume of space around it. So we don't want a straight horizontal line. We don't want a vertical tower. We want something that spirals around, or if you don't want to do a spiral, that's fine. You can do something where the blocks kind of sit on their edges and make a little bit of a tower with some things coming out on either sides. But it needs to activate the volume of space all the way around it. So does that make sense, Emily?
Yeah, it sounds like there's a lot of different possibilities with um, materials and design in this one.
All right. Yeah, and you can add and use your own stuff too. People have even done cloth for this one as well, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, so there's lots of different possibilities. Well, that is pretty much everything that I wanted to cover today for the class. Do you have, Emily, do you have any specific questions that you would like me to address as well?
I have some that are just specific to my um my service learning project, but nothing related to this project.
Okay. Would you like to talk about those questions right now? In the service learning project is part of this class, or just talk to me afterwards?
Um, yeah, I think I'll ask them now because maybe there's only a couple of other people doing it.
Yeah.
This check-in that was this weekend, it's just to make uh, a report on us locking in on who we're doing a project for and what we're gonna do, correct?
Right. Yes.
Um, so I have that figured out. I noticed that it said in the logging the time, it was like 4 to 7 hours is what this part should take. If I It didn't take me too long because I kind of already knew who came to mind immediately that I should do it for. Should I go ahead and start planning it out and kind of count that towards the time expectation for this as well?
Yeah, I think that would be okay.
Okay, because
Um,
I'm like, I don't know what to put because I kind of came up with the idea and asked them, and they are clients that I've worked with through work for a long time, and they kind of tease me constantly. They're like, as soon as you quit this job, we're gonna hire you to paint this. And I'm like, well, if I can volunteer for it, I don't have to. Um, it's not a conflict of interest for me to do both of them, be working for them and doing this. So it didn't take too long to find what I'm gonna do, is what I'm saying.
well, would you mind terribly just sharing with people what you are doing?
Oh, sure. So I do behavior therapy with special needs kids as my full-time job, and I have a client that I've worked with for almost 2 years now, and I work in his home regularly during the week. And he doesn't speak very much of his own words, but he talks a lot through he quotes characters that he likes from movies and shows. So um, I kind of connected with him through drawing those characters for him because that's how I've connected to a lot of kids that don't like to talk because I just draw things that they like for them.
Right.
And they end up wanting me to do it more, so we become friends. And same with him as he's got lots of pictures that I've drawn for him like posted in his room, and his parents have mentioned to me for a while now that like as soon as I leave this company, they would love to have me paint like an actual mural in his room of the characters. Um, and so when I read the service learning objectives, I the only thing I wasn't sure about was whether or not my company would allow me to go over outside of work hours to work on this painting. So once I got that confirmation from them, um, that's ethically okay with them that I because we're not supposed to have a conflict of interest with our clients, obviously.
Right.
Like we can't babysit and stuff. So I was like, it's not. I'm not going to be hanging out with the family, just kind of painting, doing this project for them. And so my work approved of that. And so now I did today was I just took pictures of his room and I'm gonna kind of put it on my iPad and draw pictures over the walls and then see if it's okay with them, which I'm sure they'll be fine with. Mostly, I'm gonna try to get the kids' approval. Be like, "Hey, do you want any more characters in this picture?" Um, and then actually start getting materials to paint his walls, which I haven't done before, but I've drawn lots of drawings of his characters for him, so it will be a lot of fun. His parents are
That,
really
that
excited.
sounds that sounds really cool, and I love that because it is something that really allows you to apply your own talents as a professional artist to
Mhm.
something that is of service to the community. In this case, community specifically of this family, and your work knows about it as well. And I
Mhm.
love that. And the process, for people that aren't aware, Emily's had to make certain that her company will allow her to do this volunteer project without becoming a conflict of interest. And that I really appreciate that because that is something I've worked for companies where if you're creative for them, they don't want you to be creative for anybody else. But I think that most people understand what the difference is between volunteering and getting outside work. So I'm
Yeah.
glad that you went through that process. And it can be a challenge because the deadlines have to be flexible because not everybody wants to email you back exactly at the moment you want them to email you.
True.
So you do the best you can. But that's exciting. I'm glad that it's going forward. It would
Yeah.
be, if you could, it would be so awesome to see like having a camera set up in the same spot of the room every time you went and
Oh,
worked on
like a
it.
time lapse.
Yeah, do a time lapse. I
That
think
would
that'd
be
be
so
so cool.
fun. Yeah, I
And
think
then
I
we
could
could,
do that.
and then if that family allows you to do that, then we could show that to the class and they could see what we're talking about.
You'll just see lots of Disney characters on his walls. He loves all the Disney movies and Pixar movies.
Well, I
He
think it's
even
really
like has me
fun.
illustrate little stories that he kind of comes up with. Today he had me, and he doesn't have a lot of his own words, so it's a lot of detective work for me, what he wants as well. It's very fun. Where he really likes Judy from Zootopia and Ian from Onward, different Disney movies, and he puts them together in different situations a lot. And he'll be like, he'll tell me, like, car, hotel, and I'm like, okay, so they're going on a trip. And then we kind of draw a story where they're going on a trip. It's very cute.
That sounds really. It sounds like it could be a challenge, but it sounds like it's a lot of fun.
It's very fun.
That is awesome.
So I'm so excited because whenever I get something that like I figure out what he wants and I put it down in the drawing, he just stands there hopping up and down and flapping his arms around. I'm like, I know, I got this. I got exactly what you wanted me to do. It's so satisfying.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that thank you for letting me, for giving me permission to share that, because
Yeah, of
I think that
course.
your project is really exciting. And I'm very grateful that you came on tonight, single-handedly
Mhm.
dollling the class size today.
Yes. I kind of was like wondering if it would just be me eventually. Because as long as I can make it, I try to be here because
Well, I
it's
appreciate that. Thank you very
it's
much.
fun to participate.
Well, and it's difficult putting somebody on the spot. I'm glad that you were game for doing that.
You can
Well,
put me on the spot anytime I'm here.
excellent. Well, that is everything that I needed to cover tonight and a little bit more. So if anybody has any more questions, please email me and we will cover that stuff next week. But I am really impressed with what people have been doing. And it just is very cool to see. And
Mhm.
I wanted to reiterate the idea of uh, the bird, the cat, and the cow, that story. Just because somebody dumps on your head doesn't mean they're your enemy. And just because somebody pulls you out doesn't mean they're your friend. And so when I say things, what I'm talking about critique wise is not about your work. It is all about um, how your work fits the parameters of a specific assignment. So I hope, so be mindful of that. When I say, if you want more points, you need to do this and this, be mindful of that. And if the points aren't worth the extra time to you, then maybe you can apply that time to another project. But one last thing I wanted to mention as well is for everybody in the class, there is a direct correlation between the time spent on a project and the grade that you get out of a project. And meaning that generally the more time you spend, the better grade you get. So looking through the wire projects that people were getting, the best scores went to the people on average that were between 9 and 12 hours. And if you spend a lot less time on than that, you didn't get as high as a grade as you wanted, that's most likely going to be why. And one of the reasons is we're training new neuron pathways in our brains so we can apply what we learned about 3D space into the actual physical world. And sometimes you need to, just like with any other learned skill, sometimes you need to spend a little bit more time with it. But other than that, we've covered everything. Again, thank you, Emily, for being here tonight. And I look forward to seeing everybody next Wednesday. We're not changing it to Tuesday night. I'm a rescue driver for a crew that's doing the Grand Canyon. and I'm not going to make it back by 7:30 tomorrow night. So that's why I had to change. I thought I could make it. It's not going to happen. But thank you again. And I hope, Emily, you have a wonderful week and weekend, and everybody else as well.
Thank you too. I hope that you're um, being a canyon driver tomorrow is fun. That's a very cool excuse to change class.
It is a fun. And I like using that terminology because it makes me sound so much more exciting than I really am. Thank you, Emily. We'll see you next week,
Thank
hopefully.
you. Have a good night.
You too.